And if you look, you will see them everywhere. And the rosebud that's perfect, and the teeny tiny feather when you're hoping for a great big beautiful turkey feather, but you find just that little one. We are the light in the darkest of places. And when I call myself a memory keeper, the Day of the Dead, a holiday, and I got this from a Disney movie, honestly, but this Disney movie squared up it squared up me hating my life, to tell you the truth, because I witnessed a lot of death. Until I came to know, and I have a photographic memory for it as well. I mean, I can tell you the Tate murders in a year I wasn't born. If I see it, it's a horrible quality, until it's not. You know why? Because that didn't happen to me. I had the honor of bearing witness to all the good in the human being. I had the honor of bearing witness to when they left this world. It's an honor. And sometimes it's mistaken when people get to know me as that I'm a very sad person who just lives in grief. It's not true. My life had certain things happen that I had no control over, and this is how I manage them. I manage them by honoring them. And how I do that, I tell stories, their stories. That's why I said I'm a keeper of their memories. And I'm gonna just read you a quote from my favorite song. And it says, "Since the end is never told, we pay the teller off in gold, and hopes he will come back, but he cannot be bought or sold. Inspiration moved me brightly, like the songs with sense and color. Hold away despair. More than this I will not ask." Jerry Garcia and Robert Hunter, Terrapin Station. I've come to know that I bear witness because I have their story to tell then. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a wonderful thing when I stopped being afraid of it and stopped thinking, this is happening to me. And how I got to do that was, how it was shown to me about grief when I was at the most pity party of time. I am in recovery as well, by the way. I woke up one morning, was sitting on my back deck having a cup of coffee without my glasses on, reading. And I saw something in the backyard that looked huge, and I thought it was a bag of garbage. Well, finally I needed another cup of coffee, so I put the glasses on and stood up. And it was this great big dead deer. And instantly I went to, death surrounds me, I can't get away from it, even having my morning coffee in the backyard. And I immediately went and got my son. And I was just going at him about it. Why does this keep happening to me? And my son looked at me and said, "Mama, that buck is Silver. He was old and tired, and he knew the place that you created in our backyard." Because I did. He felt so safe that he came into this yard and he laid down here to go to sleep and end his life. And when my son said that to me, something so simple, it was revolutionary for me. And instead of grief being a burden, it became an honor. Grief is an honor for me. There are mothers in this audience who have allowed me to carry their child's tombstones in places like Washington, D.C. That is probably one of the most solitary, the highest honor anybody has ever trusted me with, ever in this lifetime. And I'm sharing this with you because grief can be so many things. Typically when I speak, I rage because of policy and it's all those kind of things. And I was kind of preparing myself for that tonight, just like usual. And I'm so sick and tired of that place in my head, that I decided to invite you into my escape, a place I don't usually invite people into. I'm very comfortable in ranting and raging about addiction, overdose, and death. But I'm even more comfortable solitary, indulging in the things I do with the grief. And I wanted to share that side of it with you today. I'm going to start real quick. You know, grief comes easy for me because there was no first incident. Card number 1, from the day I was born, there was a man in my life named Marty Janowski. I never met the boy, but I know him. I know him well. Marty Janowski was my mother and my father's best friend, and best friend to most all the kids in the neighborhood. He was 18 years old. The year was 1970, and they had graduated from Lackawanna High School. Today is International Overdose Awareness Month Day. It is not, no disrespect, but when we use the term just fentanyl, we are isolating other people. It did not start with fentanyl, and it will not end there. Marty huffed hairspray out of a paper bag, and he died of asphyxiation. I know many things about Marty, but what I know the best is the story of that passing, because it's been told so many times. My father describes the girls carrying the casket as the pallbearers to ease the boys' souls that missed him so much. The girls took the casket and carried it. The only time my mom's ever carried a casket, or we've seen typically girls do that. The girls described it as how they took the casket from the boys because they couldn't stand to see the boys they knew and loved suffering so. My grandmother described it as hearing her 18-year-old son withering in pain on his bedroom floor. Those stories I've heard so many times over and over. But the better ones were, it was an old Italian neighborhood in Lackawanna, and so when you went to grandma's friends too, and that was Mama Mary, Bobby Janowski, the guy whose name I always knew, his mother. And I was about 4, and I would sit in her kitchen, and all I knew was this lady gave me her complete attention, her unconditional attention, nothing else. Smoking her cigarettes and drinking her coffee and letting me have coffee, and all I had to do was sit there and listen. And I didn't really know what I was listening to quite then, or that it was preparing me for the life I was going to have. She told me stories about her beautiful Bobby. All kinds of stories, Christmas mornings, beautiful stories. Sometimes she had a tear. The thing I noticed the most was occasionally Mama Mary had a smile, and all I had to do was listen. Being a people pleaser since early on, that's all I ever wanted to do was make somebody happy. So I would just sit and listen. And eventually I got to know all kinds of things about Bobby Janowski, a man I've never met, but who is my first. From there was a cousin, number 2, big cousin Joe from Boston. From there, my babysitter on Christmas Eve, December 25th, 1980, she was shot dead in a parking lot working as a cashier by somebody who needed money because he was struck. His body demanded something to keep it sustained. My number 4 was the first girl I sponsored when I tried the 12-step program before I knew anything about harm reduction. Her name was Tina Leone. I was on Suboxone, she took Xanax, I gave her one, and she died. So let me break that down. Under the policies that people are trying to get passed today, I could have been charged with murder because I let her have one because she was in agony from, I don't know why, that's what we do. It was never to harm anyone. So remember that when we're passing these policies, that we swapped back and forth. You're never gonna get, the kids are not coming in contact with the ones who need to be gotten. They're coming in contact with your kids and our kids and my kids and each other. That's who they're coming in contact with. I never sponsored another woman again because he made that one all about me. If I sponsor you, you're gonna die. The next one was 7/19/10, my baby cousin Amber. She was my dad's sister's child. 2 months later, her father. Then, by that time, I was self-medicating myself quite a bit. I had suffered a stillbirth in 1994, and nobody ever let me to speak about it or anything like that. And that's where my addiction started, trauma, unresolved trauma, not being able to process that immediately. Trauma needs to be processed. That is the true gateway drug. Because from there, I tried to self-medicate with everything under the sun, from lipsticks to cars to eventually pill medicine. And one day I woke up and I didn't want to die, and I reached out and I went to a place called the Recovery Place in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. My insurance suggested it. When I got there, I met people like me. There were people like me. It was heaven on earth for me. I thought it was the best thing ever, and it worked for me. It's been 13 years. But guess what? I was 40, and I lived in a condo with 3 other women. They were 20. And I was told that day, don't get all buddy with these girls like you're gonna do Mama Bear, because statistically, only 1 out of 4 of you are gonna make it. That enraged me. Oh no, we are gonna change that statistic. Well, before I even left that treatment center, I woke up on December 4th. This was the pivotal moment. I woke up on December 4th, 2012. Liz was 19 and she used to crawl in bed next to me, and I would rub her back. Out there in the treatment center, she was the baddest girl around. At night, I rubbed her back and sang, "You Are My Sunshine." Well, that went on that night like nothing, and I was out cold, and I woke up about 6 o'clock for my coffee, soaking wet. Liz's body fluids were on me, and I had slept all night in bed with her next to me. She had bought a pill at an outside meeting. And I started doing CPR on her, and it didn't work, so I started screaming for the other little girl who lived in the next bed, Sammy, the most amazing tattoo artist. And Sammy didn't respond. I looked up, and Sammy had unliked herself in the closet because she couldn't deal with the pain. On the same morning, and I lived many years, 7 years, believing that nobody will ever understand. I was the only one in that room that night. Nobody will ever get what I went through that night until I came to believe that I wasn't alone. I was with them. They were with me. I was the solitary single person that they chose to be with them as they left this world. What an honor. And to this day, I honor them with their mothers and talk to them regularly, because that is what I can do for the mothers and fathers and families in this audience. I can talk about them. I can say their name. You know what? No more stigma, no more shame. They were loved. Say their name. Come on, say their names. No more stigma, no more shame. They were loved. Say their name. Andrew. Tony. Say their name, Mary. That's right. No more stigma, no more shame. They were loved. Say their name. We're here for them. Say their name. That is all a grieving mother wants. You think you're going to hurt her? Are you kidding me? She hurts every day. You can do something for her. Say her child's name. It might not be comfortable for you. For me, it came very natural not because I like death. I'm not afraid of it, though. And I will sit with you in it. And it brings us to I will sit with you in it, and we will say their name. If you want quiet, we'll be quiet. If you want to tell me stories all day, I will listen all day. Because in a crumbling world for that mother, these are the things that we can do. And that's what we're here for today, to do those things. From there, I can go on and on. The next week, Joe, Sam's boyfriend, he couldn't live without her. So that's one more down from the recovery place. 2 more months later, number 9, Kayla, she had just given birth to a beautiful baby boy. This is my recovery place family. And then the one that I do everything I do for in his name, everything I do is for him. My favorite human being, my mom's brother, he was 12 when I was born. He is my favorite human being in this world. My favorite human being's favorite human being, his son, at 28 years old, was taken. And everything I do for him. Absolutely for him. And I used to say that I could make it right with all the other angels, but that one had to wait till I got to heaven to make that right. Until my grandma was passing in 2019, and I was alone in hospice with her. I was alone in many scenarios as someone passed, and that was why I believed this was happening to me. And I stayed with my grandma for 14 days. I lived a quarter of a mile away, and I walked over to check on her one night, and I just couldn't leave her, so I never did. And it was amazing, and it was a gift. And in the end, I did what nobody should have to do. I held up her grandson's picture to her to help her get out of this world. And I said, Grandma, I want you here, but Big A needs you. Go to Big A. And that moment, I believe I stood in the presence of the Lord and my cousin, and things were right with him. And that is when I started advocating. It took till 2019 from 2012. I started advocating because I knew things were right with my cousin, and I allowed myself to feel him. And things changed for me. I found harm reduction. While I was staying at hospice with my grandma on social media, and this is where it's going to wrap, today, on the 263rd day of death, my last one, as my grandma was passing, I met a woman named Michelle on social media. This mother was pleading for somebody to help her to get her son, for her son. She didn't know if he was dead or alive. Florida would not list him as a missing person. She asked to put her DNA in the database to see, because he wasn't in there. And because it was no crime, it was $5,000. She didn't have that. So we fundraised that money. The second the DNA was in the database, a hit came right up. Her boy, Corey, had been dead in Las Vegas since an hour after he had been missing all those months. By this time, his ashes had been processed and somebody picked him up. She had nothing. This mother was begging, does somebody have a sweatshirt of my child so I could smell him? And in the lunacy of my grieving mind, I thought, something in my heart said, I have to reach out to this woman. And then the other side was saying, what the hell are you going to say to her? She's a grieving mother, and you carry the same disease that took her kid. You have no right to reach out to her. She doesn't want to hear from you. But they just kept gnawing at me. And I did reach out to her, and I told her, Michelle, I will never claim to know your pain, but I do know your child. And I know your love wasn't a failure, because I was a mother who couldn't stop while her kids were in the other room, and I love my kids more than anything. And that's the truth. I hate that truth, but I'm no longer afraid of it. I'm no longer afraid of my truth. The truth will set us free.
Yeah.
Yes, it
Yeah,
will.
it will. The truth will set us free. And so that was what I had to offer to her. And for the first year, we did a dance where every time she'd call, she would be hysterical on the other end of the phone for hours, and I would listen. And then we would start with the same mantra: that wasn't my fault. I couldn't do anything to change it. Corey knew I loved him. Months later, we were able to add in my son. By the end of the year, we were able to add in Corey and say it. And we would say this sometimes 100 times a day. You know what? This woman needed me when my grandma was passing, something that was very hard on me, but natural hard. And it gave me a place to go to. And I fell in love for the first time in my life with a human being, and it had absolutely nothing to do with a physical relationship. I fell in love. And I believe that my grandma going to heaven and her son at the same time, I believe that the things I believe to get me through, I believe that they got together and they saw the two of us and they knew we needed each other because we loved each other in a way that was not humanly possible for me. I am a good person, but I'm just not that good. The love that I had for this woman. And so we continued to support one another, and we came up with a title for each other, the Midnight Marauding Mamas. And we would each load up bags of harm reduction supplies. Narcan, fentanyl test strips, safe smoking kits, you name it. She was in Florida, I was in Buffalo. And so I'm talking 1, 2 in the morning, and we'd both go out for walks to a 7-Eleven, and we would pop up rogue harm reduction tent. That is my church, that is my steeple. Come inside and you will see my people. 7-Eleven parking lot, eating 7-Eleven pizza with 6 kids and skateboards, because when I yelled out, who wants to learn how to save a life, each one of them had a story. One of them spending 6 hours in that 7-Eleven parking lot. But the thing about Michelle was, as much as we had wonderful things here and she had grandchildren on the way, her husband was already in heaven from an overdose, and she missed her child tremendously. She was trapped in the between. She was not suicidal, but every day she told me she was patiently waiting. And we had a falling out and didn't speak for 2 months, and I did not know how I was going to live without this woman. And we came back together, and instead of the trauma bond that was original, we had something so magnificent that I all this from Overdose, and September 1st of last year, we talked on the phone. We talked 10 times a day. She sat down to have dinner, and I believe my best friend died of a broken heart. And I believe Corey came and met her at the seashore and took her home. And I'll tell you what, it is the hardest, deepest, strangest grief I've ever experienced. And I've experienced a lot because it's got 2 sides. I miss her terribly, and I want her here with me. But I am so happy for my best friend that she's with her child. That is the strangest of griefs. And I'm sharing this today over and over because there is power in the relationship between the one who's struggling and the one whose child is gone. The moms, and no disrespect to the dads, it's just the moms I've come across. I tried everything for a lot of years. I did the abstinence thing, and guess what? I maintained it, but I was miserable, I was angry, I was lonely, I was sad, all those kind of things. I was resentful. The day an angel mom showed love to a mom who struggled with substances, for the first time ever, the beast retreated in fear. My disease, the beast retreated in fear. That love that these mothers, Mary Nardillo, I love you, and so many others. And these women, I could never put into adequate words. It is beyond human. Humans are not capable of it. And I believe that is what's going to save our children. Radical love. Radical love. You ask any one of these mothers if they could go back in time, what would they do? And it would not be telling another child. It would be none of those things. It would be cherish every moment, even if they're still using, because we meet them exactly where they are. Someone who's using drugs deserves to be loved. They deserve to have their basic needs met. It is not a moral. Monica, you want to know what? You want to know what proven works? Overdose protection centers, overdose prevention centers. That's what works. It's proven that it works. I work on the Never Use Alone line for 5 years. We have not had one fatality. Yes, we've had to call 911 a lot of times, 1,000 times. But the fact of the matter is the drugs exist, they're here. No one's gonna stop them today or tomorrow. You wanna keep people alive? You create a safe place for them to be able to do it.
Yeah.
That's what you do, you create a safe place. Because they cannot recover 6 feet under.
Yeah.
Once again, no more stigma, no more shame.
No more
They were loved.
Say their
name.
Yes. Show can't do nothing
And-
once they're
and-
gone. You tell
The
them.
thing that I cherish
When it's over,
most
it's
is
over.
when a mother slips a
I don't
bracelet
wanna
on my
hear
arm
it.
with your
Right.
child's name on it.
Preach.
It's more than gold. Anybody, I would always love and be honored to wear your child's bracelet. And every event I go to, I take them all with me. I say their names with me.
Them
It
say
has
that,
changed
too.
who I am as a human being. So just because you see me in grief every single day, it does not mean I am a sad, miserable person. It means I found my purpose. It's to bear witness and to tell their story. And it's a gift. I would hope that we try to pull International Overdose Awareness Day closer back to what it's about. We have so many days for policy. We have so many days for all that stuff. If that's all we ever do. That was why today, usually I dress in radical clothes with like, I want my blood, coming for my blood money stacklers on it and stuff. I consciously chose a dress that showed the soft me that I don't allow the world to see. Because I deserve it and so do you. I wanted you to see what could be possible. Typically, I am the first one to see everything and put a truce in. Right down to before the Supreme Court for the decision that was overturned. We won against the Sacklers and the bankruptcy was overturned. That is my typical thing. Today, I strip that off because you deserve it, your children deserve it, and I deserve it. This day is meant for us to come together collectively and share our sorrow, our pain, and find the joy.
They need to hear.
I want you to find the joy because I've attended so many of these events and I have butterflies in my stomach like it's Christmas, my birthday, and every good thing. When it's the night before I said, I know I'm going to Truth Farm in Binghamton to haul around hundreds of kids' tombstones with people who are grieving. That's because I found my purpose in it. And I invite you, I'm not saying it's for everyone, but I invite you to allow your grief to soften. Allow the jagged edges of the glass to spend time in the ocean and come out as sea glass. We're still glass and we're still broken, just a little softer. Thank you.
Ooh, yeah.
By the way, I am a rainmaker from Truth Farm, from Binghamton, New York. I am the one and only
Okay, go on, Miss
rogue
Stacy.
rainmaker in Western New York. And
Oh,
that is,
Miss Stacy.
rainmakers are radical.
See,
And I am
that's
proud.
right, be radical.
Thank you.
They need some radical. Go for it. Radical is good.
Thank you, Stacy, for those very
Yeah.
moving and inspirational words.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Now,
much.
radical words.
So at this time, what we'd like to do is to
It does.
open the floor to
Change.
any